What is happening, all you amazing contractors and entrepreneurs? Welcome to the Pond Digger Podcast. My name is Eric Triplett. I am your host. And if you're coming back to the show, welcome back. If you're brand new, then welcome. Today, I have a guest on. We're going to be talking about personal branding for contractors specifically. We have a coffee addict, Mashman Ventures, and he has a book. He's the author of A Manifesto of Fame and Influence. He is a personal branding expert. And as you know me and my history in business, I love branding. I'm very fascinated by it. We've done several podcasts on the topic, but I don't think you can talk too much about it. So we're going to dive in deeper and get Mashman's perspective on it. So if you're new to the podcast, I just want to share with you, we do have two forms of content we share weekly. We have a contractor entrepreneur podcast where we share interviews like this, where I'm just sharing you my journey of personal excellence, of trying to become the best version of myself, constantly day in and day out. That's what I'm working towards. And so when I have these amazing interviews like this, I want to give you the opportunity to be the fly on the wall and see how we're rolling and what's going on. The second form of content I'm sharing out weekly is about my love and passion for my business of touching people's lives with water, whether it's a koi pond in the landscape or an aquarium inside the house or a combination of the two. That's what I do. Now, if you're finding value, amen, that's what we're pushing for. I'm looking to provide you value as much as possible. I'll make sure Isaac doesn't go too crazy. I'll keep him on track of the personal branding and how it can help you with your business. So if we deliver, all I'm asking is a 5-star review, and you can make the world a better place by sharing the podcast with a fellow contractor that you know, because let's face it, if we create better experiences for the contractor and the homeowner, if we can do that and put water in people's gardens, the world's becoming a better place. So without further ado, we're going to jump on with Isaac right now, and let's rock and roll. Welcome to the show, my dude.
Eric, man, thank you for the invitation. And based off that introduction, the hat you're wearing, I'm getting the gist that you might be a fan of Andy Frisella.
A little
Correct me
bit,
if I'm
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
there we go. The personal excellence bit, absolutely love that. Great to be on and have the conversation with you.
Awesome. You know what's funny about the whole Andy Frisella show? I've been listening to Andy for, I don't know, since 2017, maybe, quite a long time. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times when I listen to Andy, I think this is funny because a lot of times I'll listen to him really loud. I mean, seriously, like if I go back to MFCEO, I
Hmm.
have some of my favorite episodes saved. And if I share it with someone, some of the old stuff, if I share it with you, I'm going to listen to it again because I'm like, this is really powerful for me so much that I saved it. I'm going to share it with someone. I'm
Hmm.
going to listen to it again. But
Yeah.
here's what's weird about it, Isaac, and the branding behind it all. We're going to go deeper on that. But currently, like, I literally laugh at Andy. Like when he laughs and says something stupid, I laugh because I feel like I've been in the room with him for so many years.
Hmm.
And I understand his humor. I kind of know where he's going. And so sometimes I'm literally laughing like, oh, that shit is funny. Where in the past, like 4 years ago, I just wouldn't really laugh. I'd be like, oh, those guys are having fun together, whatever. But I mean, that's kind of a brand move, right? It's weird.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I listened way back with the MFCO project around 2018, 2019, and I don't remember laughing nearly as much as I used to. I always got entertainment from it whenever he had Vaughn on, and
Yeah.
it was just a really good time. And then when he did the pivot to Real AF, I almost took a break from listening to the show because I wasn't as politically involved as I am now that I'm a little bit older. You kind of lose sight of that and you're like, no, maybe I should pay attention to this stuff. And I started listening again. And now that you mention it, it does feel like I'm laughing every single episode because it feels like I'm just having a conversation with the guys, that you would have on any other random day of the week with some good buds. So, yeah, I mean, we could talk about that pivot right there, changing his brand. It was a little bit of a big jump, but an important one, I think. So, yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah, cool. Well, listen, my goal, just to give you a little background on me, I love branding. I've been doing some personal branding for many, many years, and I have a story of like my personal brand and how I became the pond digger. And I
Mm,
was, I was in a course. I paid, I want to say his name's Peter Montoya, maybe, and I paid him like 2,500 bucks, like I don't know, 25 years ago, to like sit in the room and
mm,
talk about personal branding. And he wanted me to change the name of my business. And I named myself the Pond Digger at the time.
mm,
And I wanted to brand the Pond Digger personality, like the persona of that and who I am. And he was not having it, bro. He was like, no, I want you to be Eric Triplet, the such and such and such and such, And I was really torn by it, man. And I went home. I don't think I slept much that night. I literally
Mm.
wrote a 3-page letter. I wrote this 3-page like documentary of like where I was going, what I wanted to do, why I would do it, the thought process behind it, how
Mhm.
I am Eric Triplet, but I am the pond digger. My truck is the pond digger. My company's the pond digger. My team are the pond diggers. Like I just think it's a cool vibe, the
Yeah.
grave digger, the pond digger. And then I went in, dude. I literally walked in and I like was like, "Here, bro, please read this. Just read it, kind of just read it through real quick." It was all bullet points, so it was fast. I'm like, "Read this. If you want me to change the name of my business after you read that, I'll change the name of my business right now." And he read through it and he's like, "You can be the pond digger. Let's go. Get back in your
It's
seat."
interesting.
Yeah, it was cool.
Well, actually, and just if you didn't follow up the initial statement that you did with like the backstory, I would have actually agreed with him that you need to be Eric Triplet. But I think that if we're jumping right into it, the conversation, that there's a big difference between your personal brand and your business brand. So I'm Isaac Mashman, but my public relations firm is Mashman Ventures.
Mhm.
I'm Isaac Mashman, but any Mashman branded business is a separate business that I'm building up off of the back of my individual reputation and my own personal brand. And so you could be the owner of a plumbing company or an electricity company or whatever it might be, and you'll always be the owner of it and you'll have your own separate persona, your own separate personal brand, but that will also be the business. So you are Eric Triplet, and then you have the Pond Digger brand that is in sync. It's synchronized with what you're doing with your personal brand and with your business. And I think that being able to synergize the two to where when I'm meeting you, I'm not thinking about the pond digger. I'm thinking about Eric. I know Eric for X, Y, and Z reasons. We have similar values. We have similar aspirations and goals, or whatever. I like him because he's a family guy. And then that is going to kind of influence my personal decision to maybe work with you professionally and support your business. Same with Andy. I mean, if we started out talking about Andy Frisella, man, I remember when I was listening to the podcast initially, I didn't have a dollar that I could spend towards First Form, but the first order that I spent with First Form was like 400, $500. And I had no issue spending that money because it was associated with Andy Frisella. And so I knew that I was supporting him. And so I think that it's cool to see how it's progressed though for you over the past 25 years from that change. How do you feel like that line is between your personal brand and between the pond digger? Like, are there days that you wake up and you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm not even Eric, I'm the pond digger? Like, is there like a pep talk in the morning?
Bro, my wife calls me digger.
Really?
Yeah, my daughter will be like, because I have a coaching group for contractors and it's called Train with Triplet. So it's like the acronyms TWT, Train with Triplet. We do sales training, sales mastery, and stuff like that. And a lot of people just call me Triplet. Hey, Triplet. My wife calls me Triplet a lot. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I could sell the pond digger one day if I want to, that company, that division, the
Mhm.
construction company. I could pass that torch along to either a family member or one of my employees, well into the future if I felt like it. But, it's part of my passion, bro. I wake up, I'm pretty happy, having that. Now it doesn't come without challenges all the time, but I really like that aspect of it, and so I'm really blessed by that.
Yeah, man, I bet, I bet. And from a decision, from a standpoint, if you were going into it thinking like, oh, I want to build this into a legacy business, you could call it Triplets Aquatic Scapes. Like you could have made that decision back then. And I think that like all my businesses I named after myself, and that was a really ballsy thing to do because I knew that if I'm starting a business that has Mashman attached to it, I'm going to have to go into it with a commitment for the next 5 decades of my life or whenever I want to shut it down. But I'm not going to be able to sell Mashman Ventures at any point to some other public relations firm. But if I was to call it something else, like reputation positive public relations firm, it's like which one would you be able to sell easier? The
Mhm.
one that isn't associated with a person. And so I think contractors, a lot of times, man, especially like mom and pop contractors or people who are starting out, they'll name it after themselves. But if you do that, you're not going to be able to sell it nearly as easily from a branding perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting too. But I mean, if you look at it, think about Lamborghini. Lamborghini is someone's name, right? So
Hmm.
I don't think Lamborghini himself is around anymore, or maybe I
Hmm.
don't even know if any of the family members are still associated with the business, but the brand is
Hmm.
there, right? So, but I like how you said this, Isaac. You scored a lot of points with me. And I'm gonna be a little bit. I'm just gonna be 100% transparent with you right now. I'll be judging you today. I'll be because I
Oh, I
mean,
can see it in your eyes.
yeah, I'll be judging you a little bit because I mean, I'm not perfect, man, but I've been ran through I've been in the trenches, and so I've
Mhm.
been doing personal branding for a while. I'm not just This is not like a coaching call. Please help me with my. I mean, I'm gonna learn something. Trust me. But I'm a little edgy on this stuff, and so I want to. I don't know where I was going with that. What were we talking about? Oh, what you scored a lot of points with me right away because you're like, hey, am I going to spend the next 5 decades of my life building Mashman Ventures and turning it into this amazing business? Because that's probably what Lamborghini did. I don't know the history behind it, but he kicked ass, took names, made this amazing brand.
Mhm.
Probably spent 50, 60 years of his life building it and then passed the torch. And then someone happily took the name like in 50 years, someone's probably gonna be like Mashman Enterprises or Ventures. This is amazing. I love to have that name, even though it's not my family,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we're building. And I'm not a big focus guy on legacy. I really don't care about legacy. I actually believe like the more time you're spending thinking about your legacy, the less time you're taking away from everything else that you could be doing that's actually contributing to it. But I'm reading through The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. So everybody knows Think and Grow Rich, but did you know that Think and Grow Rich was published nearly a decade after this huge 1,000-page manuscript called The Law of Success? And his writing style, love him or hate him, he always refers to examples at the time. And he mentions Armor Meat Packing Company. He mentions Henry Ford. He mentions John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie. But you think about a lot of these different people, the businesses that we're using on a day-to-day basis, like Lamborghini or Ferrari or Armor Meats, when you buy Vienna sausages, it's like that was named after a guy whose last name was Armor. And then you go to different arenas or Carnegie Hall, all of these businesses like Chase Bank, Charles Schwab, JP Morgan. These are companies and enterprises, but they started out with one ambitious guy or gal who ultimately grew that business. And then at a certain point, it split away from this is just the person. No, this is a business, and that business means something. And I think that getting to that point is really a testament of success because you can create pride within a company, but creating this sense of you mention a name and somebody thinks, man, that's a solid guy or that's a really good business. Like you're at a really good point to where you have that third party edification. And I would want you to be judging me because as somebody who's been in the business world for decades and as a younger guy in the business world, it's like that edification or that criticism can be taken in so many different ways, man. And so I'm all for it.
Yeah, cool. One of my buddies, his name's Hector Mardueno. It's a. I like that last name. I think it's kind of sexy if you get that little accent in your name, like Mardueno. I think it's a cool last name. And so, a lot of people might not know how to spell it or what have you, but I saw him come up in business. He's a union electrician. He's very, very sharp business guy, business minded. So he
Hmm.
union started his own company. He got into ponds, so he's in the pond business like I am. And he changed the name of he. Long story short, he was like, "Hey, I'm going to start this brand. It's going to be called Stonewall Creek." And I'm kind of plugging him here right now. He's my buddy. I'll tell this right to his face, but I hate the name Stonewall Creek. He's like, "Oh, well, I want to sell it one day." I'm like, "You can still sell Mardueno Enterprises. You can still sell Mardueno Creek. Like if you really build that brand out, I just don't like the word Stonewall. Like Stonewall has a negative connotation to me. Don't Stonewall me, like." And then it was really funny because he has like this cowboy like in a fire and he's a pond guy. And I'm like, is this a fucking cigarettes brand or what? What do you?
Hmm.
I don't understand your brand. I don't understand the name. I don't understand. But we butted heads. Regardless, he's doing really well in business. His company's doing great. But to me, like it just didn't vibe with the way I think about brands. But I know it can work. It just was different than my vibe.
Hmm.
So
I actually went to an elementary school in Jacksonville called Stonewall Jackson Elementary School, which was named after Stonewall Jackson, one of the Confederate generals, if I'm not mistaken. And I see what you're saying there, and I think that whenever you're coming up with the name of a business, you have to determine the brand. Like anybody can get an LLC and call it a business, but to actually give it the characteristic traits and determine the brand, like when you're doing branding, it's more than just the logo and the name. You have to go really deep on it, but just at the surface level, it needs to be cohesive. It needs to have this seamless look about it, if we're talking purely about a business. So if it's called Stonewall Creek and you're doing aquatic, relating jobs, but then you have the logo is something entirely different. Like I heard Stonewall Creek and I'm thinking of a ranch. I'm thinking of like, oh, you're raising cattle or something like that. And
Mhm.
so you have to be kind of aware of what you're doing and how every single decision you're factoring in is going to influence somebody whether or not they know what you're doing or if they have to ask questions, because the more hoops you have to jump through to educate the person, the more challenges you're going to have. If you're creating more questions than you are answers, it's like you're doing something a little bit wrong.
Right. If you're creating more questions than answers, that's a good one. And it to me, he does have that vibe of like a ranch. But then, there'll be fish in his marketing pieces. So, now you're starting to, have answers to questions like what is Stonewall Creek? They must have something to do with koi fish or waterfalls. So, I mean, he's doing a good job. That wasn't like a stab at him. It's just that the way my mind thinks about branding. Tell me this. One thing I'm kind of a stickler on, I guess.
Mhm.
It's like my company's name is the Pond Digger, like the
Yep.
Pond Digger. Now, interesting story is when I came up with the whole business, like, hey, this is where we're going. I couldn't get ponddigger.com. It was already taken. I don't even know
Mhm.
if anyone's ever built anything off of it. And this is like 25 years ago. So I bought theponddigger.com, right?
Mhm.
And I hated it. I was so upset by that. Like it just made it too long and all this shit. But then it really turned into the personal brand aspect of it, is how I felt, right? And so to this day, I'm very proud of it that it says the Pond Digger, especially when you're seeing like, the real Brad Lee, that's his new handle, the real Brad Lee. Like, so
Mhm.
like a lot of people are using the nowadays because that's the only way they might have got Brad Lee, but someone else already got it, so they had to put the in front of it or the
Mhm.
official Brad Lee.
Let me answer that because there's actually two questions in there. So the first is I want to make kind of a distinction between the Pond Digger and Eric Triplet because the Pond Digger is the business brand. The personal brand is you. From the moment you were born, you've had a personal brand. There's this massive misconception, and this is part of the reason why I wrote my manifesto and why I'm working on the second edition is I want to focus on the philosophical side of things as well, not just the strategy, because social media is ever evolving. Marketing is relatively easy, and what is working today might not work tomorrow, and it's fluctuating. The philosophy stands the same, and so your personal brand you've had from the moment you were born, even before you were in the womb. Your mom's telling all of her friends, telling the family members about little baby Eric, or if she was expecting a girl, little baby Susan is going to be born. You get born, you go to school, start out in elementary school, you're the teacher's pet, you're the easy student, you're the trouble child, go to middle school, high school, and then you go to college. And you've been building out your personal brand every single step of the way. And now, as an adult, when you started to make the decision of where I want to build a business or I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, then you're making these conscious decisions that are contributing to a positive reputation and association with your personal brand or a negative one. And every person knows you for something. And so that is your personal brand, and the pond digger is the business. And I think that a lot of times people get that misconception about, oh no, like my personal brand is my business and vice versa. No, they're two entirely different entities. And if you take the phrase personal brand and you draw a line down the middle, you have personal on the left side and you have brand on the right. And I think we need to kind of pinpoint that. The second thing about I actually hate it. I hate when somebody says especially inside of a handle. Now, for a business standpoint, it's a little bit arguably it's better than for a handle, but like the Brad Lee. You have to think about how these social media platforms operate and how the algorithms work. Are people typing up the in front of a name or are they searching up Brad Lee? Let's look at consumer behavior here. People are
Mhm.
going to be searching up the person's name and not the or official Bradley or official Pond Digger or anything else. And so if you were to do something along those lines, and let's say your name isn't as unique, like Isaac Mashman, I didn't have to fight with anybody for it. But at the same point, I would not do the Isaac Mashman. I did Isaac Mashman. If you cannot get your handle, and the same goes for your business, let's say the Pond Digger wasn't available or Pond Digger wasn't available, you would do official at the end or real at the end. So Brad Lee would actually have been better off doing Bradley official than the Brad Lee because the algorithm is not going to show his profile as high because people aren't searching up the in front of it. They're searching up his name. So we
Yeah.
could go into like the technical. You have to think about how these platforms and things work. Same with Google is a very similar beast.
That's why I was upset by not being able to get Pond Digger. So Pond would be the
Mhm.
first word inside the search. So yeah, that's really interesting. Um, One thing I wanted to talk about, tell me a little bit more about your book. I have a question brewing. I don't remember how it'll come back up to me, but tell us a
Yeah,
little bit
100%.
about your manifesto.
Yeah, so it's called Personal Branding: A Manifesto on Fame and Influence. This is a relatively short read. The first edition is 55 pages, but the reason why I wanted to publish one was, well, number one, I've always wanted to write a book. I think that it's a really good testament of effort. And also, you can't BS a book. It's like if you're BS, people are going to be able to sniff it out. Same with a podcast. If I can't speak on a podcast, people are going to be able to say, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But the manifesto, I cover the philosophy. So I basically cover the who, what, when, where, and why of what personal branding is in very simple terms. What is personal branding? Where did it originate? And I don't talk anything about the strategy behind it, aside from some of the branding aspects of building out your name, being a public figure, positioning yourself, delivering lasting impressions of increase. And I published that in November 2021. And as soon as I published it, I kept thinking to myself, man, I wish I would have changed it. And I think that just like the artist finishes a painting and they're like, man, this isn't done. I could have added this here. I could have made this color a lighter shade. I realized that this wasn't going to be a one and done deal. And that's why I'm working on the second edition, which should be coming out later on this year as well.
Nice. Very, very good. So you go who, what, where, when. Did you do why in
Yeah.
there too, as well?
Yeah, and I start talking about like why would you be building out your personal brand? And I plan on going into depth a lot about that with the second edition. But the format of the book is really simple. You start out with the mindset. So, what is the mindset you need to have? I go into the education, where I explain what personal branding is, and then I go into branding and marketing. And the next edition, I'm going to be going into reputation management, some more PR technical side of things. But if you think about how you're positioning yourself, what do you want to be known as, and then what do people think of whenever your name is mentioned? Can they trust you, can they not trust you? There's so many different things that I could talk about there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tell me this. So let's take a brand that doesn't have like the person, like I my wife calls me the pond digger. She calls me digger, right? So like I am the person. It's like how does a company that doesn't have the name attached to it or the persona of that,
mm,
let's just say, for example, I'm the ultimate water feature company, Ultimate Waterscapes. That's the name of my company. Where's the personal brand tied to that name? I mean, if there's an owner that's outside and he just markets, right? He's just
yep.
marketing that company. We do ponds, and I send out a sales guy, I send out construction teams, I send out maintenance, service, repair.
Mhm.
Where's the personal part tied to that? Is there just no personal brand in that company?
Well, I mean, every single employee has a personal brand, every single individual that works for that business. And this is something that not many people talk about, but there's a term called internal marketing. And I've been reading the systematic review that was published by the University of the Netherlands. And they're talking about how every single employee that works for a company is able to take some of the features and characteristics from the business that they're working with and contribute to the success of the organization internally, as well as able to communicate that message to other people that they're coming in contact with. So let's say you have a team of 100 people. Are those employees going to be going to their friends and family being like, man, I'm overworked and underpaid? People aren't thinking about this when they're building a business. But if they're going to all their friends and family and trash talking the business, or they're known for never being home with their families, or that they're underpaid or the boss cut their bonus, they're not going to have a positive view of the company versus the employee that goes to their friends and family and they're like, man, I love this company that I'm working for. And every single person under the sun, every person we know at church needs to be, going with this company. That is going to spread word of mouth like wildfire and help grow the business just by having natural conversations. Now, a business could effectively take a CEO or an executive or somebody who's higher up the ladder and make them a face of the business. That's not always going to be the case. I mean, obviously, on back behind the scenes, you're going to be the person on phone calls. But if you want to be the public face, you could absolutely do that and talk about how you started the business, talking about the founder specifically, or how you grew the company. And the individual can be positioned as the expert in that field. So let's say somebody was making a post on Facebook and says, "I'm looking to interview, people that have a specialty in aquatic landscapes or ponds or whatever it might be." I'd be thinking to myself, "Okay, Eric, And then by you getting on that podcast, now you're talking about your business, you're establishing yourself as a public figure, as an authority, as somebody who can be trusted. And then people are going to be curious about your business and it'll naturally kind of tide over. So there are some nuances here. Because not every business has a founder or an executive team that is out in the public's eye, but it is becoming a lot common.
Mhm. I want to ask about one of my peers. I'm just trying to figure out how to get into this without mentioning the name too much. But so there's a big water feature company.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get through this correctly. Okay, big water feature company, distributor. They sell a lot of products. They have a YouTube channel. They have a podcast, but the owners aren't part of that face. They're not on the YouTube, and they're not on any of the social media stuff, but their name is attached to their company, like this person's company, right? That's how the company's built out, and yet they have entrepreneurs inside the company running podcasts and the channel. And I'll talk to the owner's son typically. He's the one I have more of a relationship with, and I'm like, bro, how come you're not on the podcast at least once a month? How come you're not
Mhm.
at least on a YouTube video every now and then? I think it's really bad for your brand. I think, those guys you have on there are cool and everything, but what if they left? What if they have their own personal brand under you, which I think is cool. I like that quite a bit actually. But the fact that you're not there, I just think I think it's that's like your Achilles heel. I think you should be part of that brand. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. But then, a year and a half later, and there's nothing, So
I
am I?
think the fact that the business is named after them basically answers the question. If it was named after something else, or just like I gave the example earlier of like, any other name under the sun for the company, you could have other entrepreneurs representing it and doing a podcast, but even then, you're never going to expect somebody else to convey or communicate the message of your business like you could. Yeah, you could have people that might be more effective communicators, but they're not the people who were there at the very beginning stages, going through the debt, going through the pain, going through the struggles, going through the vision. Like you as the owner, I think that especially the son, it sounds like the parents are probably a little bit older. They're not so much interested anymore. But if you have a son, he could easily come out of the woodworks and be like, hey, I'm the second generation owner of the business.
Yeah.
Let me talk to you about my parents' vision, what we're doing. I mean, I'm thinking, man, I love cigars, right? And so sometimes I'll get a Padron cigar or a Perdomo, and I'm thinking about all of those cigar brands that I really love are named after a family name and it was passed down. It would be like Nick Perdomo of Perdomo Cigars having a random factory worker who might be great, might be a good representation talking about the cigar. It's just not going to work. But then Nick gets on a podcast and he says, like, I remember going to the factories with my father in Nicaragua, and then I was able to see the workers and do everything. Like, there's an emotional connection that
Mhm.
I think just isn't going to exist if an entrepreneur or somebody else is trying to speak on the behalf. Yeah, you can get plain view results. You can get, yeah, streams and views and sales and stuff from that podcast, but I think it would 100x if you actually had the son come out and say, no, this is the vision and this is who I am and this is what we're building. I think
Yeah.
that's a massive opportunity, man.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, I definitely talk to him about stuff like that too. But so, bro, I'm gonna share with you maybe. Oh man, this is an interesting potential mistake that I made in my career back in
Okay.
2020. Okay, and in a branding aspect, I'd love to hear your take on it. Bro, first of all, how old are you?
Take a guess.
31,
23.
23. Okay, fuck, bro, you were like
I
11.
never lead with my age. Never. That was a mistake I used to make.
Okay, so that's great. You look like a monster for 23. Like you look like a dude, you've been around a while. Nice watch, smoking cigars. You look,
Christmas gifts, yeah.
yeah, so this is good. So, bro, listen, this is going to be fun perspective from you, from a fresh look at things. So, bro, you were 11 years old when I made this decision in my business. Okay. So I invented a skimmer. It's a filter for ponds. And at the time, dude, this is like, I'm just trying to button this up so it's not too long. In 2008, I was working with a friend of mine, and we were building out these filters and stuff. And in a world, I thought, you know how Ford has the Eddie Bauer edition of their F-150s, and they have the
Mhm.
Harley Davidson edition of their F-150s, and so on, the Roush or whatever. They have all those different things. I thought I would go to this company and I'd say, here's my two pieces of my puzzle. You still need pumps and plumbing and all these other little things. I don't want to fuck with any of that stuff. I just have these two really cool components. And with everything else, I have a great pond. And so I wanted them to brand under their brand, but it would be like the Pond Digger brand, of that. It'd be like Harley Davidson of Ford. So I,
Yeah.
I really kind of thought that I could pull that off. And then 2008 hit and the world was a mess, and so that fell out, right? So then 4 years later, it's 2012. I made even a better version of it, was getting a patent, all this shit, right? And I was like, I should just call it the Pond Diggers brand skimmer, right? And by that time, my business, I'd already been branding Pond Digger for a decade, right? And then I was like, well, I think this skimmer could be bigger than who I am, could be bigger than Digger. And does it sound egotistical? Am I getting narcissistic by naming everything after myself? So I really struggled with this. So I came up with a name for that skimmer. I'm like, I'm going to call it the Helix brand. Okay. And I have a cool tie for that. And I branded it, came up with a cool little heroic style, label and all this stuff. And now I'm in a position where I could potentially sell that to another company and
Mhm.
help be the face for that. But like, I don't know if I should have kept it as the Pond Digger as part of my legacy, but now it's a Helix item, So it's been a tug of war for me for a decade.
Interesting that you mentioned that. And I have a few different ideas coming through my brain right now. Number one, you said Helix, and I absolutely was like, "Ugh," like puke, because I think about Helix, DNA Helix. Anybody says like it sounds like a health product, like
Yeah, yeah.
Helix this, Helix Health, like whatever. It sounds good, but just because something sounds good doesn't necessarily mean you need to make that your brand or a package. Like for example, if you're doing a package, not so much for like contract work, but if you're building a business, it's like you have three specific categories of services. You could build a pond that's 50 foot or 100 foot or 150 foot. You have bronze, platinum, and diamond, or whatever it might be. It's like that might not be the best decision for you just because you can call it that, the tier subscription kind of thing. um but I'm also thinking about Flex Seal, the commercials, and it's like Flex Seal, put this on anything, put
Yeah.
this on the aquarium, put this on this, put this on that. And I think that they've built the entire brand around Flex Seal to where it even has shifted into memes and stuff. You'll be on Twitter and you'll be
Oh,
able
I
to see
love
a
those
meme.
things.
Yeah, and they're like, just put Flex Seal on it. It's like it's good. It's like it's recognizable. Interestingly enough, the man behind it, his name is eluding me. He has more followers on Instagram than the actual Flex Seal company account. It doesn't really surprise me, and this was last I checked, because people are going to recognize the person less than they'll recognize the brand. So with you naming it Helix, you effectively helped yourself into possibly selling it, because it's going to be a lot easier to sell calling it Helix versus the attachment to the Pond Digger brand. If you were to go that route and named it the Pond Digger, skimmer, yeah, you could have sold that to the company, but then they would have been like, well, now we need to give you royalty because it's associated with your brand name, or they'll buy the patent, and then you don't have the brand, you don't have any recognized, no visibility, no recognizable, real estate, so to speak.
Right.
So I think that it's not a you made a mistake or you didn't make a mistake, but based off of your decision, you're helping yourself effectively exit it, but you're harming yourself with the idea that you could have had this for 2 decades or 3 decades. And it's like, because it's associated with the Pond Digger and the brand that you've built, it'll automatically be a person's number one choice. They don't need to think about going somewhere else for a different skimmer for their pond, or
Mhm.
for, I'm not really an expert in aquatic landscapes or anything, so
Yeah.
I'm dropping the ball a little bit there. Um, but I think that that recognizability would have been able to help you sell even more versus than selling out to a company. A little bit of a long-winded answer, but I don't think you made such a big mistake like you think you did.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a mistake. It's just something that I'm always like, usually I make a decision, my personality type, I make a decision and go, right? But I often wonder, should, and the only reason I wonder that is because I still think I got a good 30, 35 years in me to do stuff. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
could it have turned out different? And if I make decisions in the future, I just want to learn from it. That's
Mhm.
think about it. But I guess I'll see how this all plays out if I end up working some kind of deal, either selling the patent or working out a royalty thing or something like that. Time will tell.
License the deal out. If we're talking Shark Tank, you could license out the
Yeah.
technology and get paid a percentage and whatever else. I
Yeah.
mean, you can make anything work, and this is interesting in business. I think that you can make any business work if you really want to make it work. It doesn't matter what it is. It can work, whether that's the most niche thing. It's like we used to make the joke in Boy Scouts of like underwater basket weaving being a merit badge. It's like if you wanted to do that for a career, I'm sure somewhere along the lines you'd be able to sell underwater basket weaving classes or baskets, but it's not going to be as big as, the next company that you could start that could be Apple's competitor.
Mhm.
So it's all relative.
Let's back up a little bit. You talked about, you're in the mom's womb and you're already developing a personal brand. I mean, that's a stretch for me a little bit, but
Mhm.
but I do see like, okay, he's the troublemaker. Like one of my dear friends, he was a pain in the ass in school, and he's a pain in the ass today, and everyone loves him for it though. But that is part of his brand. He is the hard
Mhm.
head, hard ass, doesn't take any bullshit. But if you got the class clown, you got the jock, you got all this stuff. So that, I mean, I can see how that is becoming part of someone's brand. So I'd love for you to build on that, especially for contractors. If you can tie that in, that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, every single thing about you, your interests, the fact that you and I both started the podcast with a cup of coffee. Now, my cup of coffee is empty sitting to the right of me, but all those little details, your interests, the movies you like to watch, the music you listen to, the kind of friend you are, if you're more extroverted versus introverted, if you're the person that somebody goes to when there's a problem, or the class clown, the most likely to succeed, all of those different titles and different bits effectively make up an individual. It's not just this is who you are and this is your personal brand. Like it's ever fluent, and you're basically every time you're growing and you're changing your personal brand. And then now that doesn't mean that somebody might not think of you as the class clown still. Let's say that friend that after graduation straightened up and changed his personality around. You might have saw that, but the other people that you went to school with, they'd still think of him as the class clown in their brain, even though he's nothing like he used to be. And so I think that as you grow and as you make changes and you mature, especially for younger people out there, it's like you have to make sure that you're keeping up with that reputation that is surrounding you, whether or not you need to kind of manipulate it or update it. Now, thinking about from a contractor sense, I think that there is a really big opportunity for contractors or any blue collar worker for that matter to really make a huge name for themselves. And I can't help but thinking about Mike Rowe. He's been on my mind quite a bit lately from Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned him is number one, he's the most well-known guy, and Dirty Jobs it was created after an accident. Like they didn't think it was going to be anything, but all of a sudden, for some reason, people liked watching him go in this sewer and rummage around and all this other crap. Like it appealed to people, and then now as less people and less guys, especially like not as many guys are going to college as girls. Like that's just a statistic. I think like 40% of young men are going to college, 60% of women are. They're looking for alternative paths that doesn't rely on a degree, but it could go to trade school. They could go and work blue collar jobs that might not break their back, but might give them some really good lives without relying on the degree. So if you were to take all of this information, and let's say you are an HVAC guy and you were to get on Instagram and talk about how you got started in HVAC, showcase your personality. You don't want to be some zombie. You could get on a video and start it off and speak with confidence and say, hey, I got started in HVAC X, Y, and Z years ago. This is the process. These are the challenges. And you do videos on occasion talking about it. You can start building out your personal brand as, hey, this is Paul Wesby. He's the HVAC guy, but he's also into X, Y, and Z interests or whatever else. And then people are going to think, wow, I want to, if number one, if I need my HVAC fixed, I'm going to call it Paul. But also, you're setting the example for everybody else who might be interested in getting involved with HVAC or be entertained by it. And so there are a lot of different paths that you can go down to building out your personal reputation and a ton of different results too. Whether that's money, attention towards your business, awareness towards a cause. Let's say it's a nonprofit you're interested in. It's like, let's say you're concerned with the environment. I mean, doing aquatic landscapes and digging ponds and stuff, I'm sure that you're probably aware of the Everglades, and it's like they're overrun with pythons and things like that. It's like you could talk about those different pieces of information and think about Shaq on the Old Spice commercial or with General Life or General Auto Insurance. It's like by him being associated with those businesses or with those brands, there's a degree of trust that transmutes over. I know that was a very long-winded answer. I hope that I explained that effectively. Um, but I could go into other specifics, I suppose.
I think that's good. I like that. I think there's like an Office Depot or something like that. And there's Shack is, there's this big poster of Shack. I think it's Office Depot. It's funny because I'll walk in and sometimes the employees will be like, hey, well, can I get you something? I'm like, yeah, I'm here. I have an appointment with Shack to talk to him about some of this stuff. And they look at me like, what are you talking about, Shack? I'm like, I'm standing next to this poster of Shack. Like,
Mhm.
be in today or not? I mean, I just need to talk to him for a little bit,
That's
and
funny.
just kind of play with that. But that does give you a level of trust and stuff. Um, Okay, I'm gonna come back and relate this to me again, and I don't want this to be all about me, but I'm hoping I can share maybe the challenges that I've dealt with, and
Mhm.
contractors can learn from that. So one thing that I struggled with for probably for a few years, at least 4 years, is I have the Pond Digger YouTube channel, and it's all about education. It's like how to pick fish, how to build ponds, how to ponds gone wrong, and how to fix them, all this stuff. It's very educational like that. But like, I like, I'm fairly athletic. I'm boxing right now. We have a wildlife rehab foundation. We have a ranch. I'm into bonsai. I'm into African cichlids, which is like an aquatic thing, but not. Uh,
Mhm.
it's in the house. It's not in the yard. It's not koi fish like a pond, right?
All aspects of your personal brand too. All
Yeah.
aspects, all of those things make up who you are.
Yeah. So that's one of the things is in the past, for probably 10 years, I just said, hey, I'm the pond guy. If you have a pond problem, I can help you. But now I'm like, I'm branching into these things. It's like Gary Vaynerchuk will do whatever he wants to, right? And they're like, well, you're not Gary Vaynerchuk. You got to stay more niche down. I'm like, I don't want to fucking be niche down.
Mhm.
And I don't want to start too many different, Instagram pages and podcasts. And so like I did start another podcast with a partner about 3 years, about 3 years ago. It was for contracting, for like what we're talking about here,
Mhm.
or helping contractors become the best versions of themselves. And we did that for about a year, and that thing dissolved out. I'm like, this is not going to work. We separated the thing, and now I'm like, what am I going to do now? Like, how can I disseminate my information, my journey? I don't want to start, the Train with Triplet podcast. So I'm like, I'm gonna flow it into the Pond Digger podcast, and hopefully it'll resonate with people. And that's why I have two different openers. I'm like, hey, what's up, what's up, contractors and entrepreneurs? And then I do another one, what's up, pond aficionados and pond freaks, what's
Mhm.
up today? And so like, at least when you hear the opener, like if you're on Joe Rogan, I never really listen to the MMA stuff or the comedians, but I'll listen to like,
I'll skip over that too. Same
yeah,
same thing. Yeah.
yeah, but I'll be like, oh, Peter Attia is on. Oh, whatever, I want to listen to that kind of stuff. Tim Ferriss. I want to catch those ones.
Mhm.
They're the ones I glaze by. So like I try to like open my opener up like, hey, this is for contractors today. You might not want to listen to this if you're a pond freak, right? Or vice versa. Like, hey, pond freaks, if you're a contractor, you're an HVAC guy, and you want to work with me and train with me and learn, cool. But if you don't care about koi fish, you're not going to want to catch the other one. So that's kind of how I tried to tailor it. But that's been a
And
real.
I think I see the question that you're asking without explicitly asking the question. And I think that you are over the next couple of years going to be moving farther and farther away from the pond digger and leaning more into Eric Triplet. You are Eric Triplet, and you might be Eric, quote, the pond digger triplet,
Yeah.
but you're going to be showcasing your personality, showcasing your interest, showcasing your life, showcasing these things so much more because 20 years from now, you might not be doing the pond digger anymore. You might be onto a different project or doing something entirely different. You don't know where 20 years is going to lead you, right? And so I think that if you have that YouTube channel, for example, you only need two Instagram pages, you only need two Facebook pages, two YouTube pages. You need one for your personal self and one for your business. Now, obviously, you can go above and beyond, and if you have multiple businesses, you'll have multiple pages, but you don't need to create a new page for every podcast or for every endeavor. That's just not necessary. But you could have the Pond Digger YouTube channel and then Eric Triplett's YouTube channel as well. And there's naturally going to be sometimes you might post the super niche content on your business page because your business is the niche. You're building a business that is in one specific area. Eric Triplett isn't in one niche. And so if I'm talking about a very specific subject about, let's say, public relations, how to submit a press release, very specific detail, which I mean, a contractor could submit a press release too. I would not post that training on my personal page, but I might post that on Mashman Ventures page and Mashman Ventures YouTube channel because it is so niche. It's very technical. It's very detailed. But if I was to talk about some, I don't know, strategies you can use to get free press, I might do that on my personal page and not my business page. Be not as niche, but it's still it falls in line with what my specialization, what my focus is. And so I think you moving away and maybe pushing out some personal content on your YouTube channel that is surrounding you, some of your interests or a day in the life. I mean, there was a massive YouTuber who recently passed away. I cannot pronounce his last name for the life of me, but he died of cancer a couple months ago. Brian. Um, his YouTube channel is still going and it's named after himself, and his son is creating videos for him. I mean, he was
What was his niche?
basically it was reptiles and like animals. Brian W.
Yeah,
It's some
I
almost I
bro, this is
cannot.
crazy. I don't know his last name either, but I'm in a charity event for that guy right now in a boxing match.
You know exactly who I'm talking about. Great guy, lovely energy, man. Like it made me sad, and I wasn't even a huge fan of him, but
Legacy
he's a perfect
Aquarium.
example where he still, when he was alive, he was doing a bunch of these different things that were all relating to animals. And now that he's gone, his name is living on through his aquarium that he was working on, or the reptarium or the reptile room that he was doing. Um, and yeah, I mean, at any moment he could talk about those specific things. And it's like, let's say you want a different kind of client. Let's say you're doing a lot of plumbing work. You know, if you're doing plumbing, you might not want to do residential plumbing anymore, or you might want to lay off on that and focus on some businesses. So you will stop promoting to all the homeowners and you'll start promoting to the businesses. That doesn't mean you're pivoting your business per se. You could go at any moment and get homeowners again. You're pivoting your marketing strategy that you're using for that specific moment. And so I think that understanding you can change and create content at different points that might lean heavily into an individual direction, you have that freedom to do so. And I think that this idea of perfection we're creating for ourselves in our mind of like it has to be this way, it has to be rigid, is starting to kind of get less and less. I think understanding that you're the main focus point grants you a lot of freedom and a lot of permission to maybe showcase that side of you that you wouldn't have showcased in the past.
Hmm.
For the longest time, people didn't know I smoked cigars or that I would do, you know, whatever it might be. And then I started incorporating those things, realizing that those are the individual traits that would build rapport with the person on the other end of the phone, you know, that we would have some similarities built.
Yeah. So a couple things here. It's funny that you know Brian, and that's how I got roped into this boxing event that we're doing right now. It's a charity event for Legacy
Hmm.
Aquarium. It's somehow tied to that. I don't have the whole thing figured out yet, but um, here's one of the reasons why I struggled with it, because I have 156,000 followers on YouTube, subscribers, right? So it's a decent amount. So there's a lot of social proof backed behind that. And I've been helping contractors for 20 years, but just real kind of mild, mellow buddies of mine, peer groups, to ask me questions. I share my experiences. But you know, so if I was going to start a train with triplet, well, I think we did start a train with triplet YouTube channel, right? We're like, okay, are we going to put the podcasts in here? How are we going to do that? But there's no social proof, you know. It's like, hey, I've been already helping people for 20 years. I already established some social proof, you know, Instagram and all this stuff. And bro, Instagram, like, I don't know, it took me like 10 years to get 10,000 followers. I mean, Jesus, it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and on Instagram. And so it's like, okay, I started a train with triplet Instagram, and it's, I don't know, it's got like 150 followers on it. It's just terrible, man. It's just so much work to build that out. And I want them both under one umbrella, but I also struggle with the fact that, like, you know, I have the Pond Digger channel and I'll show a little taste of my coaching stuff. But like I did a coaching call today, and I'm like, Don't let prospects treat you like a pawn. I mean, if is this a chess game? Like, how are we playing this? I don't want you to be a pawn. Don't get taken advantage of. Don't let, clients shit on you. And so,
Hmm.
like, if I really put that out on the Pond Digger page, people be like, "Oh my God, he talked about me like that." Like, it's not really what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to support contractors so I don't get beat up. And so I think it could be confusing for people. And so I'll put that like little more hardcore, training that I would help a contractor with, um, on that
I
channel.
think,
You know what I mean? As opposed to
yeah.
the one.
I think what you should be doing moving forward is because I saw the channel before when I was doing a little bit of research on you. I think you should change that channel from the Pond Digger and turn it into Eric Triplet. And then from there, you still talk about Pond Digger related subjects. You create a separate YouTube channel. You can put a tab there for the Pond Digger or whatever, and you could do, like I said, those super niche things and you could do those like maybe the more professional things on the Pond Digger page. I think one of your biggest issues over the past decade probably has been this gray blurred line between Eric Triplet and the Pond Digger, and you're not realizing that the Pond Digger is a separate business that lives on past you. And it's like people might refer to you as the Pond Digger, but you aren't the Pond Digger. That's your business. And I think that that's something that, like, if you were a client of mine, I would have to kind of reinforce with you and be like, that is like a persona, sure, like when you're doing business or something, but when you're sitting around the table at night, talking about life, it's like your dad, you're Eric, but I would pivot the YouTube channel and I would make an announcement saying, "Hey, I'm Eric Triplet. You're following and subscribe to this channel. It was previously called The Pond Digger. That is my business. But I've been getting a lot of requests to showcase me and to go into trainings on things. And so you'll see a little bit of a diversification of content where it might not just be about ponds or trainings, but you're also going to see me in my bonsai garden, or you're going to see me at this event or doing this or giving you some training and some sales stuff. And you don't want to have to create a different page for training, with Triplet, which I think is very creative, by the way. I love that name because now you're going to be able to access this huge organic audience that you've built up that are automatically subscribed with you and get that channel active again and be able to reach so many more people. And you could just have different segments. You don't have to create a separate podcast. You could have a different segment to where you don't even make the announcement. You're just being like, today we're going to be talking to a contractor. This is the focus point. Even if you're not interested in this, I think you're going to get value. So you should stick around. And that gives you the control. And now you're stepping away from this energy of almost like you might not want to stick around. This might not be your interest, and be like, no, like you're going to want to stick around because it's Eric. And it might sound egotistical and narcissistic, but people are following you for a reason. And I think that that's important to lean into because you're the trusted expert, man.
You are fucking pissing me off right now.
Why? Because I'm right?
Probably. Probably. No, it's very interesting to change that channel to change the channel name to Eric Triplet. I'm gonna think about this very heavily. And I'll have to get some advice from a friend of mine who is very thoughtful about stuff like that. But that's a very interesting twist that you kind of shocked me with. You scored some more points there for me.
I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, but what I think is the genuine answer. It's like,
Yeah. Bro,
just
you're
like the friend 20
23,
years
bro.
ago.
You're 23. Shit. I'm pissed right now. I mean, where'd you get all this wisdom at 23 years old? Holy
Well,
shit.
obviously, we would also need to search up because, like, right now, I'm pretty sure there are other people. You did something good though, because when I went to Google and I searched up Eric Triplet, you weren't the first person to pop up. There's somebody else. I believe he might have been a politician who has your name, but I searched up Eric Triplet, and one of the top search results was the Pond Digger. So that's good. There's an association there. But I would say that we might need to think about using your middle name. So what's your middle name, for example?
Michael.
Michael. So we might want to incorporate Eric M. Triplet to help dominate Google if that's something that would be a focus point because I think that if you're searching somebody up, you don't want to fight other people for the search results, but you might be able to dominate underneath Eric M. Triplet or Eric Michael Triplet versus Eric Triplet. So that's just a minor strategy I always walk through with my clients because I've had clients in the past, like one who he's done engineering work for Jelly Roll in the past, Tristan Roberts. But you search up Tristan Roberts, you're going to see a politician and a rugby player and a skier and all this other crap. But I was like, what's your middle name? Oh, it's Tyler. So let's call you Tristan T. Robert or Tristan T. Roberts, excuse me. And now he dominates the entire page of Google, and all of his handles are at Tristan T. Roberts audio or at Tristan T. Roberts. And so just a lot of these small different decisions add up and all these strategies to where you can have that omnipresent brand.
Yeah, I love it. That's good advice. I know there's a Dr. Eric Triplett, and probably 20 to well, probably 25 years ago, I tried to get erictriplett.com, and it was already
Mm,
I'd said doctor or whoever, politician. Um, but around that time, I was having kids, and so I got my kids' names. So I have apriltriplett.com, I have taylortriplett.com.
good for you.
I like locked those names in long, long time ago. And they've never really done anything with them. My son has recently said, "Hey, I think I'd like to do something there. Maybe I'll start vlogging or something like that."
Mhm.
Cool. I got it for you. I've had it for 25 years. Um, but it's funny because someone hit me up, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. This guy, he's like, "Hey, my wife's name's Taylor. I noticed you have Taylor Triplet. I'd love to get it for you." I'm like, "Yeah, bro, sorry, I can't do it." He
No,
was
we have that locked in.
he was not happy, bro. But I mean, like, bro, I've had this shit for like 20 years, saving it for my son. I'm
Yeah.
not just giving it up.
This is such an important piece of advice, though. I mean, how many contractors and businesses might have a Google business listing and might have the business listing where they send people to give reviews, but they don't even have their own website or they don't have a domain. If you own a company, no matter what the company is, whatever the niche is, you need to own the domain. Just like I have isaacmashman.com, mashmanventures.com, mashmaninvestments.com, like anything that I have my name attached to, I own. And I built websites off of the back of them. Even if it's a simple landing page, a landing page is better than having no page at all. And that gives you a little bit of social proof. And then same with like your name, like you need to be owning your personal domain. And most people don't. Very few people own their actual name. And so I've thought about that in the past too. It's like, what am I naming my son? Not just because it sounds good, but because it's something that's unique to where he's going to be able to dominate everything. So
Mhm.
man, like that's the first time I've talked to somebody and you've thought way ahead of that. And it's like I don't want to name my son just something that's casual that he might fight with other people. Like it needs to be something unique. He could have all the social media handles. He could own his domain. He could dominate Google, and he could build up off of the Mashman name. Like that is a win-win situation. It's like you're talking about setting up a retirement plan or a college fund for your kid. I think going down to what you're naming your kid is just as important, frankly.
Yeah. I maybe made a mistake. I'm a little bit pissed about this because I named my son's middle name Michael after myself and after my
Mhm.
father. Like I'm like, well, it's traditional. I'll just keep it that way. But I should have named him Nathan, so he'd be TNT. Like that would be his acronym. Dynamite. So I kind of I regret that sometimes, but I mean it's still okay. I kept the Michael in the family.
That's not rock song. That's like TNT. Like
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
that by? Oh man.
Come on, bro. It's AC/DC. You're only 23. You should know that.
AC/DC is one of my least favorite rock bands though. I'm more of the 1970s like Led Zeppelin, Kansas. I
Uh,
love those groups. Never really got with the AC/DC or 80s rock.
well, AC/DC's from the 70s, bro.
Is it?
Yeah, I gotta correct you on that. But that's cool. AC/DC's an interesting one. I like that heavy Australian accent.
I think Led Zeppelin though is the best rock band of all time. That is a hill I'll die on for sure.
Okay. I won't fight you on that one. I mean, Robert Plant, let's go. You know?
Man, if I wish I was alive during that era to go witness like Staircase to Heaven and like Person or Kashmir or any of those songs, man, that would have been amazing.
Fun. Okay, so let's I wanna go down this rabbit hole real quick. Um, Jerry's going to start a construction business, next week. What should he
I would
be
love it.
foundationally thinking about for his personal brand? Just like you're already thinking like, hey, what am I going to name my son? I better go on Google and find out if I can get that last name, right? So think about that. So what is this person foundationally going to establish to help his personal brand for his company?
Okay. I'm not going to address the personal brand. I'm going to address the business brand first. Again, the difference between the two.
True.
His personal brand is outside of the company. He's building it with or without the launch of this new business. So let's think about what are the steps to launching a successful business, not from an operational standpoint, but from a branding standpoint. So number one, are there other businesses that share the same name? So I would go to opencorporates.com or every Secretary of State for the United States, every single state go to their website and see what other businesses might have the name. Now, this is good not only from a legal perspective, because if you're competing with another company that has a similar name, the secretary might turn you down. You might have to name it something else. So think about that. And think about the competition standpoint. Are you competing with them for, again, search results, making it confusing from a marketing standpoint? If somebody searches up TNT marketing and they see three TNTs, which one is yours? So you want to make it as easy as possible to stand out and to make people view you as the only one that they need to go with. So finding a unique name. Now, are you naming it after yourself or something entirely unique? Think about long-term vision. Are you trying to exit the business in the future? How closely do you want it to be relying on your name? Are you well known in your local town? For example, if your family's been there for 6 generations, you might have some credibility to your last name. You might want to name it after yourself. Maybe not. It's a decision you're going to have to think of. You're also going to want to purchase your domain. Go to GoDaddy or whatever the domain sites are. I use GoDaddy for all of mine. Purchase the .com, purchase the .org. You don't need to go and purchase all of them if you don't want to, but it's never going to hurt. You're also going to want to secure a social media page. And this means Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, pretty much all the major networks, YouTube. You need to get at TNT Marketing, going off this example, or TNT Construction. Let's call it TNT Construction. You're going to want to get the handles on social media. Just one TNT Construction, no spaces, no periods, no nothing. And get that done. Now, if you're doing a local business and let's say TNT Construction isn't available, put your state. So let's say it's in Minnesota, it would be TNT Construction MN or GA or FL. And that will help you stand out and also have some geographical location, some benefit there. You're also going to want to set up a Google My Business listing. This is quintessential. Google takes up 95% of searches, and it is also what a lot of artificial intelligence language models build up off of Google searches and Google results. So you want to get a Google My Business listing, which is going to be what pops up whenever you search up a local Mexican restaurant. You see the Mexican restaurant with all the reviews and information. You need to fill one out for your business and think about getting on other listings that would be applicable, like Angie's List or Yelp, things of that nature. And that will basically ensure that you're able to dominate the first page of Google, dominate on social media, if you're going to make social media part of your strategy, but more importantly, basically just cement the credibility there that you might have. I mean, you could think about doing the BBB. A lot of people don't realize this, but you have to pay to be accredited with the Better Business Bureau. So it's like a hit or miss if you want to invest the money. But that's what I would say. And then from there, then you could think about, oh, this guy, let's call him Blake Weston. Blake Weston, who is the owner of TNT Construction, and then you could talk about how you started your company, some of the challenges, what your focuses are, and then you could go and start getting on podcasts or contributing to people locally, doing sponsorships, etc., and becoming the face of that business, and then driving people towards the business. So, but I think again too, understanding what activities are contributing to revenue. And like there are so many different things that you could do that are not revenue centric, or they might contribute to revenue over the next 5 years, but then not the first 6 months. Which, if you're starting a business, you need 6 months. You don't need 5 years. So I think finding a little bit of a balance to do both is important.
Okay, that's all. That's a lot to unpack. That's good.
It is, but I would recommend somebody listen to that because I just gave you the blueprint towards building a business brand from a very early point, and then determining what brand colors and making sure it all looks the same, getting a good logo. But all those things are relatively easy, and you could even use AI to do logo design in 2024. So it's like it's not as difficult as it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so they've established a brand. How do they tie their personal brand to their business?
Then you would be the authority figure in construction. You would be, but you would need to be a little bit more specific than that because construction is it's such a macro view. What kind of construction? So it's like, are you doing residential, commercial? Do you have a specific design characteristic? Like I'm thinking about one of the designers I follow. I think his name is Danny Wang, and he has a lot of these ultra luxury mansions out in California and like the modern contemporary thing. That's what he's known for. I think it's like Donnie Wang Design or something along those lines. But you're going to want to, I think it's important to distance yourself at the same time too. And the best way I can explain this is when somebody's leaving a review for your business, you don't want them to always refer to you in the review. So let's say they're leaving a review for the Pond Digger, and every single review is talking about Eric Triplett. They need to also be talking about other employees that are at the business. And so I think that there needs to be some separation there, which I won't get into a whole lot. But being the face of the business by being on podcasts and talking about it through social media, you have your business page, you have your personal page. You can invite. This is one of the easiest things. If you have a Facebook page for your business, you can go to that page, click on the three dots on your profile, and invite all of your Facebook friends. So if you're starting out this brand new Facebook page, you could literally invite the 3,000 friends and family that you have on Facebook, and they will go to your page, like it, and get it up off the ground. And then you can make a massive announcement on your personal page and say, hey, I'm launching TNT Construction. Go check it out. I'm serving this location. This is what our focus is. For the portfolio, go to tntconstructionminnesota.com. Simple as that. And that's like really all you need at the very surface level, at the very beginning, to get something off of the ground and operational.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you could write a book in the future, like you could do, and then as an example, if you're doing TNT construction, I'm building up off of this. I'm in this now. You could do like launching an explosive construction business, builds up off of the TNT brand. You can do so many things. You could do split like TNT podcasts, like all of those different things.
How much what you do professionally is tied to marketing aspect of the personal brand?
Not much. It's more on branding, actually. I would say a significant portion is on branding. I mean, the longest chapter in my book is on branding, the largest section. Same with the second edition. It's like the branding section is significantly longer. Most of it is on branding, and then the marketing, it varies based off what the person wants to do. So if they want to be a public speaker, the marketing strategies outside of social media and getting on podcasts, like those are going to be the same regardless of niche. But if you're a public speaker, now you need to think about, okay, maybe you need to start reaching out to different event venues or getting a publicist or getting onto a speaker bureau, and those are marketing tactics there. And so depending on what or who I'm working with and what their focus is and what their goals is, then I would kind of focus, and change some of the marketing side. But a lot of it is, how do you create an omnipresent personal brand? How can you either verify that you are credible, or more importantly, show people that you're credible? Because you could be a doctor offline, but if nobody knows that you're a doctor online, how are they going to trust your advice? And so you have to let people know that you're an expert and do things that validate that. And so a significant portion is branding, and then marketing is, some things staying the same, but 60% branding at least.
Share with us some mistakes that you think people make in a personal branding aspect. And one thing that comes to mind would be like, not being their true, genuine, authentic self. Just trying to, because I mean, we want to be relatable, right? This is me. It's really easy to be me, and this is my personality. This is part of my personal brand. I'm not going to try and be something I'm not. Is that?
Well, I think if you're trying to be authentic, you're already fucking up. Which you could argue that what I just did was authentic, because that's what I would say if I was on a client call or working with somebody. I'd be like, if you're trying to be authentic, you're fucking up. You just need to naturally be you.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you might not go and go immediately in on the conspiracy theories that you have that might put a tinfoil hat on. You might not do that at first glance or talk about your political viewpoints immediately, but introducing those things over a period of time, it's like there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not doing it to purposely divide people or you're so far out. But I think mistakes wise, people are messing up because they're looking like everybody else, because they're treating it like a personal page. So social media is a personal endeavor, right? Your Facebook page or Instagram page is a personal page, but if you're only posting about what you're eating or family events or taking photos, you're not delivering anything that is tangible. And so I think that with every piece of content you're doing, there are four outcomes. A piece of content can connect you with somebody or connect them with you. It can entertain them. You can educate a person, or you can inspire them or motivate them to take action. And so, what is that photo of you eating a sandwich doing? What is the photo of your family doing? It's connecting you, but that's pretty much it. But recording a video talking about something is going to be much more likely to entertain them or educate them and connect them and motivate them to take action. So let's say you're doing a training video on digging a pond or starting a pond business. You could say, hey, these are some of the mistakes that I made. This is what you can do to avoid it. Or you could talk about your craziest experience or the most badass aquarium you built in your career. Now you're educating, inspiring, motivating, and connecting. You're hitting all four of those targets.
Mhm.
And so people need to have an intention behind what they're doing on social media and the outcome they're looking to get, which again could be revenue, driving awareness to a cause, or just because they want to be well known. But if we're all business people here, it's like we want to build a business, we want to make revenue and do something good.
Yeah. Interesting. Where was my head going? It's interesting asking for advice from a 23-year-old. You got good stuff. You're laying down some good stuff. I like this stuff a lot. It has me wondering about where was I going with this? This
Well, you
was
know, the man, I've done dozens of podcasts at this point, and like my aim is 100 by the end of this year, 100 in 2024. And a lot of the podcasts that
yeah,
I was originally on, it was so centered on my story and about the days and about how I got started and all this other stuff. And there came a point where I'm like, every person has one of those struggle stories or single parent or whatever it is. But I want to also now make sure that I'm telling people exactly what I know and showing that I know. And so if I need to get into strategy, I'm gonna get into strategy. If I'm talking like I want to typically work with somebody who's a contractor, but being able to share the advice that I'm given today is able to be like, no, like this applies to you too. And to where you could take these things and get results by building your personal brand or by building your business brand in the ways that I'm doing. And that's why I'm like, if they need to listen to it a couple times, it's like by all means, or take notes or do a part two. So
yeah,
I enjoy these kind of things though, because it gives me a chance to shine and also think critically.
yeah. No, I think some of the stuff you're laying down is actually very good. One thing I was going to tell you is um, the way my business has evolved currently is I used to be in the field quite a lot, so I'd be
Mhm.
on a new pond every day and doing all this stuff, and so it was real easy to create the content. Then as I'm scaling or doing whatever, so like I'm in the office more. So people are like, "Hey, where's the pictures of the ponds?" I'm like, dude, I got paperwork. You want to see paperwork? Like,
Mhm.
what are you doing today?" I'm like, "Paperwork. You want to see the folders?" Like I'm doing like I don't have anything cool to share with you, but so I've been sharing more and more stuff, and I've been sharing things that might make me laugh a little bit, sharing more aquarium stuff where I used to only put pond stuff on that pond digger page on Instagram. I'm talking about specifically.
Mhm.
I love doing stories. I don't do as much as I used to just because it takes a lot of time to do them the way I like to do them. Um, I know this is kind of a long way to go, but on my stories, I've been sharing a lot of like Andy Frisella stuff. I'll share some stuff politically so people know where I stand. I'm a patriot.
Yeah.
I don't like this kind of shit. This is, so I'm sharing some stuff like that. How do I put this? I don't go way off the deep end like Andy Frisella might, but I will share some of this stuff that I feel is like politically or feeling about things. And or I'll be upset about something and I'll post like, "Hey, I'm not cool with this." I'm like being cool with pond stuff and aquarium stuff and a bonsai
Mhm.
thing and some coaching and training and like, what the hell's going on with America? This is some bullshit. And then I'll go back to some other things, throw some memes or whatever. But someone in the Instagram world, I haven't said this yet on the podcast, they sent me the new Dr. Phil book. And it's
Mm.
like, I don't even know that. I was going to look it up real quick. It's downstairs, but it's the new Dr. Phil book. And it's like, things are going to be okay. And it's some kind of political stance. It's like, I know
Yeah.
the world's all going crazy right now, but everything's going to be okay. And Dr. Phil wrote it. And it came in, it was addressed to me. And I open it up. I'm like, Dr. Phil, I don't fucking read Dr. Phil. I would never order this book. They're like, it says your name on it. I'm like, I didn't fucking order this book. It went onto the counter and then it comes out. It turns out someone just sent it to me like, Eric, it's gonna be okay. Settle your shit down. So one of my dear friends or fans or followers, whatever you want to call them, on Instagram world, looked me up, sent this book to me because I've been posting stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so that's like it's a little shocking because it's like I don't think I'm off the deep end, but they felt compelled to send me this book.
Well, you know, it's interesting. It might actually be because they're closely aligned with you more than you think. Because Dr. Phil, he has actually made a little bit of a pivot with his personal brand and with what he's known for. Because you think about it, it's like you for the longest time I would have grouped him with the Jerry Springer,
Yeah.
category of because everything he did was talking about people who had fucked up upbringings and
Yeah.
messed up family situations and all those things.
Yeah. Catch me
But he's
outside. How
actually
about that?
started but
That.
yeah, exactly. But he's actually moved into the realm of politics and he's been interviewed by Joe Rogan and different people. And he's launching his own television network and talking about some of these issues and from a more, I don't think people realize he was actually a psychologist for years before he did the Dr. Phil show. He had his own practice and everything. And so he's talking about things politically. So I would pick it up and read it, and you'd probably be surprised. It's actually probably because that person is aligned with you and they're like, I think you'd probably enjoy this. I don't think it's uh, the same way that you think. But I think again, having a balance between what you're posting and the intention behind it. And so I have what I call the skyline strategy, your personal brand, like you're building your own city skyline, so to speak. What are you putting in it? What buildings are you building? So for every two posts that are business related, you do one personal post. So you might do one talking about your craziest pond design. You might do one talking about how you got started and the business or some of your early mistakes. And you might do a third post that's about family. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio, two business posts, one personal. And
Mhm.
that creates this good balance to where people are still viewing you as an authority, but they're starting to connect with you more. Because some people, man, you go to their page and they have only polished videos that are talking about business or sales or marketing or whatever, and you don't know the first thing about them or their upbringing. And if you're thinking about longevity here, right? And all of us want to be, we want to have long careers, we want to be remembered. Are you going to remember the person who you only know what they do, or you connect with them for who they are?
Mhm.
I'm going to connect with the person who I can relate to and who I know versus the professional. I could go to any other person who does what you do, and that's it. Oh, shiny objects, a new thing, this is better. But if I'm like, no, this is Eric. I like him as a man. I like him for the fact that he is a patriot or whatever. It doesn't matter if there's a different professional out there who does the same thing you do, maybe even better than you. I don't care. I'm still going to go with you because there's loyalty. And I think that getting back to the place of brand loyalty is going to be something more and more people do in the next couple of years. In the next decade, I think that brand loyalty is going to come back.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you shared that. A couple things. Like, a lot of times, if I'm dealing with a contractor, they come into our coaching group and we start working with them. I do look at their social and stuff. You'd be surprised how many contractors are only showing pictures of their beautiful work or before and after. So I'm like, they need to see your crew. They need to see who's coming out to their place. They want to know. They want to look at and see who you guys are. So I do promote that quite a lot. I do want to tell you, uh, I I do plan on looking at that book. I mean, I got a lot of books that are piled up. They're good books that I want to get on, but I was like, I am going to take a look at that book. Someone sent that to me anonymously, whether they thought I was off the deep end and I needed some psychological help or not, or maybe like you said, hey, maybe they're aligned better. Maybe there's something in that book that I don't know yet. And I do remember seeing he was on Joe Rogan, but I hadn't caught that one. He's not someone I would watch on Joe Rogan. I want to catch Peter Attia, or I want to
Yeah.
catch someone talking about health and wellness and fitness and stuff like that. So yeah. But that's cool because now you're talking about Dr. Phil pivoting. I mean, there's a personal brand, a
Yeah.
big personal brand, right? And he was
A massive one.
massive, right? And he was launched because of another personal brand, right? Oprah like put him on the map.
Hmm.
Her personal brand brought him to the forefront of everything. So that's a good testimony to personal brands right there.
Yeah. Or like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I mean, you don't think of Dwayne The Rock Johnson for just being an actor or for having Terramana tequila or for being a wrestler or for any of the individual things. You think of him for him, but he has done all of these different things and they all work because of who's associated with it. And I think that, a lot of times people think that personal branding is only meant for celebrities and for people who are like top tier business people, but they don't realize that they could be consciously building up their personal brand on any level. And there are levels to this. Obviously, there's a hierarchy of personal branding, but every interaction you're having is contributing to it. And so it's like that person you're shaking hands with out in the field, they're going to remember you. They're going to talk to their buddies about you. If you do an excellent job or you get a review from them, like always collect testimonials. Like edification is so important. Being able to be edified by somebody else. That was one of the first things I was taught in network marketing when I was first in the industry and then I left or whatever. But one of the first things they taught in sales was like bring on your mentor and talk them up. And your mentor is going to talk highly about you. And so there's a degree of trust here that is established. And it's like collecting those video testimonials and saying, hey, can you record a quick minute talking about what we were able to do for you? Or can you leave a positive review on Google? That's so important. And what I will say is it's a common practice, I think, for smaller businesses. You technically cannot offer incentives for positive reviews. So if you're thinking about doing a giveaway for a positive review, leave a review, get a new grill. That's actually technically illegal with the FTC. That's something I came to find out last year.
Yeah. Crazy.
Stupid, but stupid.
Well, listen, sometimes I don't even ask the right questions. What am I missing that contractors should be thinking about? What should be on their mind for personal brand?
I think I think the biggest thing that I would tell a contractor, man, right now is that don't think, because I come from, like, my grandfather was a carpenter, like, like I come from a blue collar upbringing. Um, I'll say don't think that just because you're in contracting world you can't have a public persona. I know especially true, or it's especially true that sometimes you want to be more private, and I think sacrificing some of that privacy for the public exposure that can result in positive benefits for your business or for yourself is something worth considering. And again, I would look at Mike Rowe and what he's built and use that kind of as the example of what you might want to consider your personal brand being. That he's written a book. You can write a book about whatever your field is, whatever your business is. You can start a podcast on it, or you could have guests on it, have conversations like this, and you're in control of what you're putting out there. And it might not be perfect at the beginning, but there are so many tools now that make the barrier to entry so low, where you could be putting out some really high quality stuff with barely even trying. So that's what I would say.
And
I think we covered a lot of other stuff.
I think for a 23-year-old, that is really pretty sound advice. I have a lot of contractors who are like, well, I don't like to put my personal stuff out there in the world. Like
23.
What did I say? 25?
You said 22. I'm 23.
Oh yeah.
It sounds so stupid.
But no,
sounds so stupid.
No, you're very mature for your age. That was really sound advice. Because again, like I said, I have a lot of contractors that they want to try and keep their privacy, but people buy from people, and
Yeah.
you need to be relatable and that kind of stuff. So, well, man, thank you so much for this. I mean, gosh, I'm going to want to talk to you in 5 years when you're still in your 20s and get more amazing stuff from you. Hopefully we can talk before then, but if contractors want to learn more about you and what you do, what's the best way to get in contact with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm everywhere on social media at Isaac Mashman. You can find me there. You can grab a copy of my book, Personal Branding Manifesto on Fame and Influence, from Amazon, or wait for the second edition to come out later this year. You can also go to my websites. Go to mashman.org. That's what I think I'm going to start sending people to, because I have all my other sites linked there. And yeah, Eric, man, it's been a pleasure being on. And I know this was a heavy episode, but I think playing this back would be well worth it.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for that. I'm gonna close this out. Thank you so much for your ears and attention. It means a lot to me that you're paying attention to the podcast. Now that we're streaming this on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify, it means the world to me if you just rate and review and subscribe. And until next download, I hope you're getting after it like Mashman and I are doing. Let's go.